Recently, a glance at my Social Security statement reminded me that I drew my first paycheck in 1974, 50 years ago. I've paid in something every year since then, even if it was only a short summer job. I grew up with the mentality that if I wasn't studying, I should be earning money, whether it was from household chores, delivering newspapers, or selling door to door. But after 50 years and reminders of my mortality, and endless reminders to plan my retirement, my mentality's changed. It's time to plan for life without a job. Before moving into this new chapter, I want to review my work life and take stock. Think of this as my end-of-career report. The first part of my work life was not really a part of my career. It was just a succession of jobs that didn't have much to do with each other. Day camp counselor for my summers, then a groundskeeper, then a dishwasher. My first real job out of college was working as a claim service representative for Blue Cross Blue Shield. I was telephone claim service operator for 2 years. I was known as Mr. Bloomsbury to callers to protect my identity. I was grateful for that experience, for learning new skills, adapting to the 9-to-5 job, living in D.C. and saving a little money. But after a couple of years of working at Blue Cross, even after one promotion, I decided health insurance was not going to be my future. I wanted to see the world, experience different ways of living, and find a purpose. That led to the Peace Corps. Peace Corps sent me to a small town in Niger called Loga, where I taught English to 12 to 17-year-olds. The experience was much better for my French than it was for their English, but my students did like me having to take their pictures, even though they had to wait months to get copies. I spent a lot of time trying to understand how Niger could be so poor in the same world where Americans were so rich. I remember thinking how smart the Nigerians who taught us French during Peace Corps training were. These guys were the elite of the national school system and had worked hard, but their prospects for their lives was still precarious because the country was so poor. I didn't realize it at the time, but in addition to all the other bugs I caught the development bug. I found a purpose that intrigued and challenged me. I was a willing warrior in the development jihad. Fast forward past graduate school, and I get my first job with a small nonprofit called Africare. In spite of my relative inexperience, I was hired as deputy country representative in Mali and took on a lot more responsibility than I could have gotten in a US-based job. Though most of my work was office-based, we worked close to the communities. We worked on concrete things like digging wells, constructing dams, irrigation of fields. It was never hard to see the connection between our work and the benefits to people who needed help. I had a good boss, Dan Gerber, who became more of a friend than a boss. Both with Dan and my Malian colleagues, I felt part of a work family. At the same time, I began to understand more about the complexities of the work, the conflicts between trying to do good while supporting corrupt governments, or hurting markets for food while trying to feed people. During my time with Africare Mali, I got married and started a family. This gave another purpose to my career, caring and providing for my family and having to think about finding jobs where my children had good schools. Before I left Africare, a former colleague, John Berman, recruited me to PSI, where I was to spend the next 10 years in what was certainly the most exciting and challenging part of my career. PSI was riding a wave of donor investment in social marketing and HIV/AIDS prevention, and there was always a new project starting, new products to market, and new things to learn. PSI's work also fit with my belief in using the market to promote development and drew on my business training. And it was just fun to market condoms and contraceptives. I had 4 jobs with PSI, twice in the home office, once in South Africa and once in Ivory Coast. In Ivory Coast, I got to use my creativity in producing a film series for television and help set up a local organization that's been going strong ever since. But all good things come to an end, and ultimately I left PSI for Apt Associates, where I could work in private sector approaches beyond just social marketing. I rebranded myself as Private Health Man and learned about other things like private sector partnerships, social franchising, health systems, health financing, and policy. I did a lot more writing at APT and felt good about what we produced, even if I did also feel much more removed from helping people in need. Sometimes development is about influencing decision makers, I learned. There was lots of travel, lots of time sitting in airports, conferences, workshops, group photos at conferences, and presentations. With my last assignment at APT, I got to go to Nepal to serve as a technical advisor to a social marketing organization, CRS. Working entirely in a supporting role created new challenges, and at times this work felt like pushing a rope. But CRS made progress while I was there, and I could see the development field was changing. It was more appropriate for me to be in a supporting rather than a leading role. The final chapter of my career drew on all the previous ones. Thanks to Ruth Berg, who had been my boss at APT before, I was recruited to Palladium to be project director of NPI Expand. I led a global project in health supporting local organizations with the responsibility for implementation, and our focus was on strengthening their capacity. We worked with local organizations on behavior change, social marketing, health system strengthening, and COVID mitigation. I had a great team in headquarters, great people in our 11 countries, and successful programs with 92 organizations that we supported. I can sense that this is the right way to end my career. I have most of the same misgivings I always have had about foreign aid, but I hope on balance, at least for the foreign aid that I was involved in, I helped make things work better and minimized any negative effects. But it's time to pass the torch to younger development warriors willing to take up the cause. One thing that has sustained me throughout my career was working alongside interesting, dedicated, fun colleagues. Most of what I've learned from them, and I cherish the memories, both good and bad. To those of you still working in this field, I wish you well in fighting the good fight. To some of my colleagues who have left this life too soon, I will miss you and thank you for the ways you enriched my life. To my colleagues who are retired already, who's up for a game of pickleball?